Good day, students. My name is Mr. Ebenezer Kalola, and I'm your marker tutor for English Module 6. So, my contact details are there on the screen, my cell phone number and my email address. So, feel free to consult me from 8 until 5 in the afternoon. So, this module has one assignment which is made of 150 marks, and the pass mark of 50% is required in the assignment to grant you admission to the examination. The examination question will have the same format as the assignment, but they won't necessarily have the same questions. It will count for 150 marks and have a 3-hour duration. A final pass mark of 50% is required, 60% of the written exam plus 40% of the assignment semester mark. So we have 5 units that are covered in this PowerPoint presentation. We have Unit 1 on the components of sentences, Unit 2 on the different phrases in sentences, Unit 3 on the different clauses in a sentence, Unit 5 on the features of direct and indirect speech with examples, and Unit 6 with figures of speech. Before beginning our presentation on the units, I would love to highlight the key words that are used in the questions, in the assignment, and the examination. So I'm not going to go into details because these keywords are properly defined in your study guide at the beginning there. So guys, you must be able to identify what is to contrast, what is to define, what is to describe, and what is to discuss, distinguish, explain, to list, or to outline. It is very important that you know these keywords, guys, because these keywords, they will guide you on how you are supposed to answer a certain question. So the first thing I want to look is what we call the basic sentence elements. So a sentence has a basic element. So we say the subject of a sentence is a person. The basic element of a sentence contains a subject, a verb, and an object. A subject, a predicate, and an object. The subject of a sentence is a person, place or thing that is performing the action of the sentence. The subject represents what or whom the sentence is about. The simple subject usually contains a noun or pronoun and can include modifying words, phrases, or clauses. The predicate expresses action or being within the sentence. The simple predicate contains the verb and can also contain modifying words. For instance, we have a sentence here that says, "The man builds a house." Now, this sentence contains two basic elements: the subject and the predicate. The man in this sentence is the subject, whereby we have a noun, which is a man, and then we also have an article, which is there. And then we have a predicate, which expresses the action or state of being. Now, the predicate in this sentence is builds a house. Now, this predicate contains a verb, which is builds, and you have an article, a house, and you also have an object or a noun, which is house. So let's look at direct and indirect object. The direct object receives the action of the sentence, and the direct object is usually the noun or pronoun. For instance, the man builds a house, the man builds it. The indirect object indicates to whom or for whom the action of the sentence is being done, and the direct object are usually a noun or a pronoun. For instance, the man builds his family a house. The man builds them a house. In these two sentences, the first one, the indirect object is his family. In the second sentence, the indirect object is them. We also have what we call a clause. A clause is a group of related words that has both a subject and a predicate. We have two types of clauses. We have an independent clause and a dependent clause. So we say an independent clause expresses a complete idea and can stand alone in a sentence, while a dependent clause cannot. For instance, sparrows make nests in cattle barns so that they can stay warm during the winter. The first clause is an independent clause, while the second clause is an independent clause. So we say an independent clause is one that can stand on its own 2 feet independently, and you can join independent clauses together if you want, and we call it coordination. An independent clause lacks nothing to stand on its own. it expresses a complete idea. For instance, Jennifer put a new wash in the bathroom faucet before leaving for the party. That's an independent clause. And then we have, Mai figured how to fix the garbage disposal. This again is an independent clause. After reading that independent clause, you get the meaning behind that utterance. And then we have the dependent clause. We say a dependent clause is one that cannot stand on its own 2 feet. It needs an independent clause to lean on. You must join an independent clause to an independent clause for it to have meaning. This is called subordination. In contrast to an independent clause, a dependent clause is incomplete. It is a type of sentence fragment, and a dependent clause may contain a subject and a verb, but it begins a thought and it doesn't finish. For instance, because Amy left the iron on when the firemen arrived at the dorm. In the following examples, we have added independent clauses for the dependent clause to lean on. For instance, the dorm obsolete wire melted and started the fire because Amy left the iron on. Jennifer and Mai had already put out the fire when the firemen arrived at the dorm. Because Amy left the iron on, the dorm obsolete wiring melted and started the fire. When the firemen arrived at the dorm, Jennifer and Mai had already put out the fire. When you join a dependent clause to an independent clause, you are not joining equals. One side of the resulting sentence, the independent clause, is stronger, while the other side, the dependent clause, is weaker or subordinate. The words used to join unequal parts are called subordinate conjunction. The important thing to remember about subordinate is that the punctuation differs depending on whether the dependent or independent clauses enters first, and if the independent clause is first, it is followed by a comma. But if the independent clause comes first, no punctuation is used to separate the two. And then we have phrases. We say a phrase can include a sentence can include a phrase, a clause, or both. A phrase is a group of related words that function as a single part of speech. A phrase like a subject, a predicate, or both. Consider this sentence. Finishing in the race will require running down several steep stairs. This sentence contains 3 phrases. The first one is finishing the race, which links to the predicate. The second phrase is will require, which links the subject, and on the third phrase is running down several steep slopes, which links both a subject and a predicate. We have different types of phrases. We have absolute phrase, adjective phrase, adverb phrase, and general phrase. If you go in your study guide, guys, they are well stipulated and defined there. So you must be able to identify them, define them, and give examples. We also have infinitive phrase, noun phrase, participial phrase, prepositional phrase, verb phrases, and so on. Moving on to sentence structure, we have a simple sentence which contains a subject and a verb, and it expresses a complete thought that can stand on its own. For instance, the baby cried for food. This is a simple sentence. And we also have the Professor Maple's intelligent students completed and turned in their homework. This sentence again, it is a simple sentence. And we also have Megan and Ron ate too much and fell sick. This sentence again, it is a simple sentence. Then we have a compound sentence which has 2 independent clauses. An independent clause is part of a sentence that can stand alone because it contains a subject and a verb and expresses a complete thought. Basically, a compound sentence contains 2 sentences. Now, these 2 sentences are joined by a conjunction. If you come across a sentence that has conjunctions such as for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so, we call them compound sentences. For example, the shoplifter had stolen clothes, so he ran once he saw the police. This sentence contains 2 independent clauses. The first independent clause is the shoplifter had stolen clothes. And the second independent clause is he ran once he saw the police. The word saw there, it is our conjunction that is used there. And we also have they spoke to him in Spanish, but he responded in English. This sentence again contains 2 independent clauses, hence it's a compound sentence. And then we have a complex sentence. A complex sentence is an independent clause joined by 1 or more dependent clauses. A dependent clause either lacks a subject or a verb, or has both a subject and a verb that does not express a complete thought. A complex sentence always has a subordinate term. So it always says a word such as, because, since, after, although, when, or relative pronouns such as who, that, and which. For instance, after eating lunch at the factory, Tim went to the gym to exercise. Now this sentence contains two clauses. One is dependent, one is independent. And we have a subordinate conjunction here, which is after. Then we have opinionated women are given disadvantage in society, the privileged male accomplishment. This sentence again contains an independent clause and a independent clause, and they are joined by a pronoun which is that. And then we have the woman who thought artistry was fired for stealing school supplies. The woman who taught artistry was fired for stealing school supplies. Again, this sentence contains a dependent clause and an independent clause, and they are joined by a relative pronoun which is who. Then we have a compound complex sentence. So we say a compound complex sentence has two independent clauses and at least one dependent clause. So, for instance, we have the sentence says, after the two soccer players lost their game, they joined their other teammates for lunch and they went to the movie. So if we remove the independent clause after the soccer players lost their games, we have a compound sentence. And then we also have a dependent clause that makes the sentence compound complex. And then we have the man believed in the system and he knew that the justice would prevail after the measure was sent to jail. Moving on. What is a paragraph? So we say a paragraph is a collection of related sentences organized together because they share the same argument, focused on one main idea. A paragraph is made up of a minimum of 3 sentences and a maximum of 5 sentences. You say paragraphs are helpful because they help us to organize our ideas in longer texts, such as letters and essays. They make it easier for the reader to follow our ideas. They show where one topic or idea ends and another one begins. Generally, paragraphs in English have 3 principal parts. They have a topic sentence, which introduces the reader to the paragraph and tells the reader what the paragraph is all about. And this is again where you find the main idea of the paragraph. And it also has the supporting sentence, which give examples, which goes into details, which support the main idea that was expressed in the topic sentence. And you also have the conclusive sentence, which is found at the beginning of, which is found at the end of the sentence, and it summarizes the paragraph. So, like I said, a paragraph contains a topic sentence, which is the main idea. It has the supporting sentences, which is like the body of the paragraph, and a concluding sentence. So we say first the topic sentence introduces the focus of the paragraph. It contains the key information. It is a complete sentence. Guys, the topic sentence is a complete sentence. It is most likely the first or second sentence in the paragraph, although it may also appear in the middle of the paragraph or towards the end of it. It consists of a topic and a controlling idea. The topic can be one word only or a group of words, while the controlling idea states the focus of the paragraph. So, when you're writing a paragraph, it must always have unity and coherence. When we're talking about unity, it means that all the sentences refer to the main idea or the topic of the paragraph. While coherence means that the sentence should be organized in a logical manner and should follow a definite plan of development. Now, I have an example of a paragraph here. I'm going to read it out. So the paragraph says, Canada is one of the best countries in the world to live in. First, Canada has an excellent healthcare system. All Canadians have access to medical service at a reasonable price. Second, Canada has a high standard of education. Students are taught by well-trained teachers and are encouraged to continue studying at university. Finally, Canada's cities are clean and efficiently managed. Canadian cities have many parks and lots of space for people to live. As a result, Canada is a reasonable place to live. Now, this sentence has a topic sentence, supporting sentence, and a concluding sentence. And in this paragraph, we also have unity and coherence. All of the sentences that are found in the paragraph, they are all supporting the main idea that is expressed in the topic sentence. And secondly, this writer has used transition to achieve coherence. So what was it did he use to achieve coherence? He used words such as second, finally, first, and as a result. All of these words, they are found at the beginning of sentences, and they are what we call transitional words. And then we move on. Let's look at what we call direct speech. So we say direct speech calls the speaker's direct own words and is written as follows. For instance, she told her mother, "I do not know at what time we will finish with the test, but I will call you." The sentence contains two parts. She told her mother. These words are what we call introductory. They introduce us to whose words we are going to retell. This clause is always introduced by an introductory verb, in this case, told. The first part of the sentence is separated from the actual words by a comma. And then the second part is, I do not know what time we will finish the test, but I will call you. The second part gives the words which were actually spoken by the speaker. For this reason, these words are placed in inverted commas. These inverted commas indicate the speaker's own words. Direct speech is usually placed inside quotation and accompanied by a reporting verb, and also a signal phrase or quotative frame. For instance, Alex said, "I will be there in 5 minutes." The teacher said to Peter, "If you don't complete your homework, I will make a call to your parents." Paul said to me, What are you looking at?" Joseph said, "You should give him a second chance." All of these words are direct speech. And then we have indirect speech. Indirect speech, or otherwise called reported speech, is one in which a person reports on what someone has said or wrote to him, not using the actual words, and the indirect speech rests on the content. What someone stated instead of the word that are used for stating it. The formation of the reported clause in the indirect speech is mainly based on whether the speaker is just reporting something, or ordering, commanding, or requesting something. We have examples of indirect speech. For instance, Alex said that he will be here in 5 minutes. The teacher scolded Peter that he does not complete his homework. She will call his parent. Paul asked me what I'm looking at. Joseph advised that I should give him a second chance. Now, what is the key difference between direct and indirect speech? In a direct speech, we use inverted commas to highlight the exact words of the speaker while reporting them. On the other hand, in indirect speech, as its name suggests, it involves reporting what the person said without exactly quoting them. So in an indirect speech, we do not use inverted commas to highlight the original statement of the speaker. Direct speech refers to the literal repetition of the words spoken by someone using a quotative frame. On the other hand, indirect speech is one that reports something said or written by another person without making the use of exact words. So we also say direct speech is from the speaker's standpoint, whereas indirect speech is from the listener's standpoint. The inverted comma used we will use inverted commas in direct speech, but we don't use them in indirect speech. So you must also be able to differentiate between connotation and denotation. So what is the difference between connotation and denotation? Denotation is a literal meaning of words that is found in a dictionary. Denotation is a literal meaning of words that is used in a dictionary, while connotation refers to the meaning that is given to words based on how they are used in a situation. So in literary work, we find a common practice with writers whereby they deviate from the dictionary meaning of words to create fresh ideas and images. Such deviation from the literal meanings are called the use of figurative language or literary devices, such as metaphors, similes, personifications, and so on. Even in our daily conversation, we diverge from the dictionary meaning of words and prefer connotative meaning, or words, or we say meaning which is associated to words in order to accurately convey our message. And then let's look at figure of speech. A figure of speech is an intentional deviation from literal statements or common usage that emphasize or clarify or embellish both written and spoken language. They form an integral part of language, and figure of speech are found in oral literature as well as in Polish poetry, prose, and everyday speech. Most figure of speech in every speech are formed by extending the vocabulary of what is already familiar or better known to what is less well known. First, metaphors derived from human physiology are commonly extended to nature or inanimate objects. For instance, in the expressions, the mouth of a river, the snout of a glacier, the bowels of the earth, the eye of a needle, and so on. We also use similar, whereby we use words such as like or as. For instance, we were packed in the room like sardines. We also have personification, whereby we give human features to non-living organisms. We also have hyperboles, rhetorical questions, litotes, onomatopoeia, metonymies, synecdoche, and so on. We have so many figures of speech that can be found in your study guides. Study them, guys, understand them, be able to identify them if you're tasked to identify them in a test. And then we have sound devices. We have sound devices such as alliteration and assonance. When it comes to alliterations, this involves using words that begin with the same sound. For instance, Sally sells seashells by the seashore. Sally sells seashells by the seashore. This is an alliteration, whereby we use the same sounds in that sentence. And then we also have assonance. This is a figure of speech that focuses on the vowel sounds in a phrase. Repeat them over and over to create effect. For instance, hear the mellow wedding bells by Edgar Allan Poe. Try to light the fire. I lie down by the side for my bride. Fleet feet, sweet by the sleeping geese. Hear the lark and the harden to the beckoning of the dark fox gone to ground. If you look at the sentence that says, I lie down by the side of my bride, fleet feet sweep by the sleeping geese. We use the E vowel sound in that sentence, and it creates an effect when you read it. We also have an anaphora. This one is used to uses a specific clause at the beginning of each sentence, or to point to make a statement. For instance, good night and good luck is an example of the beginning of word being the same. The more it is used, the more of an emotional effect it can evoke among those who are listening at it. We also have a pun, which is a play on words using different senses of the word or different sounds that make up the word. It creates something fun and interesting. For instance, I would like to go to Holland someday. Wouldn't you? There is a pun. We also have onomatopoeia, whereby we use a word that actually sounds like what it means. For example, hiss or ding dong or fizz or boom. So students, another aspect that you need to understand is the climax of a plot. What is the climax of a plot? A climax of a plot. This is whereby in a story, the situation rises to an interesting part, and if there was any conflict, the characters come to a resolve or to a solution to overcome their conflict. And with that, guys, we have come to the end of our presentation. Good luck with your assignment and examination. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.